Here we are in John chapter 3. I'm only going to read a few verses from the first part of the chapter, and then I'll read a couple of verses about halfway through. I want you to see a difference that I kind of discovered myself, and as I talk to Christians around our country and here in Canada, I notice we all have a similar concern sometimes. Let me just start with, remember, this is the episode where Nicodemus comes to Jesus at night. Apparently, he's not too comfortable coming to Jesus during the day. But he comes at night and he asks a question. Here's what Scripture says. Now there was a Pharisee, a man named Nicodemus, who was a member of the Jewish ruling council. That's in verse 1. He came to Jesus at night and said, Rabbi, we know that you're a teacher who came from God, for no one could perform the signs you're doing if God were not with him. Back up for a second. Do you see what Nicodemus just said here? He says, we know that. So it appears that Nicodemus believes something about Jesus, right? He knows something about, he says, we know that. He's kind of got what I would call belief that. Interestingly, Jesus will spend the next 15 or 13 verses trying to explain to Nicodemus that belief that really isn't what we're looking for. And he ends up in that famous verse, right? John 3:16, where he says this, now look at each word. For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish but have eternal life. There's a difference between belief that and belief in. And what Nicodemus is being taught by Jesus is we need to transition from these two things. Have you ever felt at times like your belief was more superficial? I mean, like we're not experiencing Jesus in a certain way. We have a belief that something is true, but we don't always have belief in. Like there's some difference. And we meet people in our lives as Christians, maybe who we are envious of because they seem to have this deeper relationship with Jesus. I've felt that way a number of times, and I've only been a Christian about half. Well, I was 35. I wish I could say. Luckily, I'm not 70, so that's good, I guess. Is anybody 70 in here? I all hope to get to 70. My dad's 75, and he was a police officer before me, and that's the toughest guy I know is my dad. So I hope to be his age someday. At 55, I can tell you I've been a Christian now for about 18 years. And I'm watching my own life and trying to navigate between belief that and belief in. Some days, I think I'm deeper than other days, I'll be honest with you. How do we define the difference, and how can we help ourselves to take a step from belief that to believe in? Well, I want to illustrate this with you this morning. I brought some props from my work, okay, to do this. Most of you have watched, how many of you like crime shows on TV, or you've watched Dateline, or you like those kinds of shows? Raise your hand. Don't lie. Raise your hands. Okay, it's okay. It's kind of a guilty pleasure, right, to watch these shows. So let me just show you. I brought some stuff that you may recognize. This is a ballistic vest. All of us are assigned these as police officers. And this is the one I was assigned most recently. It's a wraparound vest. It's made with Kevlar that's sewn into this fabric, right? And we even have an extra plate that goes right here in front of your heart. This ceramic plate actually is designed to stop larger caliber rounds. You got like a .223 round, something like that, would not penetrate this. We expect you to fight through some wounds, but it's hard to fight through a heart wound, right? So we put that right there to kind of protect your heart. And I wanted to just kind of show you that this, as I have worked this job over the years, sometimes the things I learned on the job as an atheist have been helpful for me to understand what's valuable as a Christian. So I want to tell you a story about one of these episodes I had about a vest like this. I've worked robbery homicide for a number of years, and I work cold case homicides now. Those are just unsolved murders. There's no statute of limitations on a murder. So if these go unsolved, we can go back years later. I've worked cases from about 1979 to about 1988. And these are cases that were difficult to fix and difficult to solve, but we were able to do it. And I've kind of written about this a little bit on this book, Cold Case Christianity, and applied those same skill sets to the Gospels. We also, if you're on our homicide team, you are also assigned to our officer-involved shoot team. Here's what that means. If an officer gets involved in a shooting, we actually send out an investigative team to make sure that the officer was in the right, that had a reason to shoot. I got called out one night on a guy who was wearing his vest and got involved in a shooting. We actually get to test these vests. We put them on a range, on a target, and we push them down range, and then we actually shoot at them. So we can see that these vests do stop rounds because we've shot at them before. I'm going to make my worship leader crazy by putting that on his keyboard, okay? So let me show you how these work. When I first got assigned a vest, it was not one of these wraparound vests. It was actually a straight panel vest. Straight panel vest just comes straight down. Doesn't have this extra piece. Make sense? But the only problem we learned is that we were training our guys to shoot with a certain kind of profile, and that profile we were training them with didn't work well with this kind of vest. Let me show you what I mean. We would train our guys to reduce the target to the suspect by turning our body to the suspect and shooting cross arm, so that you have a smaller target to hit. But the only problem is if you're facing straight on, an isosceles kind of a triangle, you're a larger target to hit, right? The only problem, of course, is if you turn your body to the suspect and you don't have one of these wraparound vests, you've just turned the one part of your body to the suspect that has no protection. So that's why we've redesigned the vest and we have these wraparound vests now. And we've seen them stop rounds, even large caliber rounds. We shoot at them with our own weapons and we see the vest come back at the end of the range and we look at it and we see that these rounds don't penetrate the vest. So we're like, okay, I guess these are pretty good. So this particular night, an officer is out working patrol and he sees a car weaving in the lanes and he thinks he's got a drunk driver. So he lights up the car and he tries to pull the car over, and because the guy's drunk, he doesn't even realize it's been lit up, and so this goes on for a little bit and he finally pulls over. And the officer walked up on the car, and he asked the guy to roll the window down, so he did, and he could smell the alcohol coming out of the car. So he asked the gentleman to step out of the car to do what we call a field sobriety test, a FST. The guy gets out of the car, and he faces the officer, and the officer realizes immediately that, this guy looks pretty hardcore. As a matter of fact, this guy had just gotten out of jail about 2 weeks prior for an assault charge. And the officer didn't know it, but he had a semi-automatic weapon under his untucked shirt in his waistband. Now, in those days, if you were a parolee, and he was, in possession of a handgun, and he was, you would do a year in jail just for possession of the gun. So this guy had to make a decision. He realized that this officer is going to do a pat-down search or eventually find this gun on me, and then I'm going to go to jail for a year, or I can kill the officer. So he decided that night that he would kill the officer. So when he got out of the car, he was standing about where this stand is, and the officer was about this far away. And the officer asked him to turn around so he could do a pat-down search for weapons, not knowing that this guy actually had a weapon. So he turned around from him, and he turned back around and faced the officer immediately, and now he had his weapon out, drawn on the officer. And the officer was just far enough away that he couldn't do any kind of a takeaway move or anything on the gun. He had to make a decision. How do I respond to this? There's a car here. So he thought about, I could jump behind the car. I could do a number of things, hit the deck. I could do a number of things trying to avoid getting shot. Because he said when this guy turned around, he was caught so off guard, he didn't even have his hand anywhere near his own handgun. But he had a dilemma. This guy was about to shoot him. So I said, well, what did you do? Now, clearly, I'm interviewing him after the shooting, right? So he must have survived to talk to me about it. So he does survive. But I asked him, I said, what did you think at this moment? What did you do? He said, well, I knew I was wearing my vest, and I've seen this vest stop rounds. So I decided just to stand there and tense up my stomach muscles and just take the first couple of rounds while I would get ready to return fire. Think about that for a second, folks. Now, he had belief that the vest could stop rounds because he had seen this in the range, and he'd even shot rounds into vests. But now he has to move from belief that the vest can do its job to belief in the vest in a time of crisis. You see, he really understood the difference, didn't he? He moved from belief that to belief in a millisecond. Would you agree? So now the question, of course, is, do we have something similar that we experience as Christians? I think we do. Young people are leaving the church in unbelievable numbers. They just are. I don't care who you survey, where you survey it here in Canada or in America. You will find that people between the age of 18 and 30 are the largest risk of walking away from church. Only a third, according to studies that we do in America, will ever come back to the church. And as many as 60 to 80%, depending on the survey, will walk away. Think about that. Why does that happen? Because at some point, they're in a crisis. It's either a spiritual crisis or it's just a crisis of being in a classroom with a professor who is attacking them or attacking their worldview. It does happen. Or other students who are not Christians who are mocking their worldview or just beginning to question the worldview. It might seem rather benign at first. And young people aren't quite sure that this vest can stop bullets. And if you don't have belief that's grounded in something evidential, you know it can stop bullets, good luck when we ask you to stand in it in a crisis. If you don't think it can stop bullets, you will not stand there. You will hit the deck, you will run, you'll hide behind something because you don't believe that this thing can do its job. I got a question for you. How many of you really know that this is true, Christianity, or you've just kind of been hoping that it's true? If I ask people around our country, why are you a Christian? Let me tell you the three answers I get over and over and over again. I get, number one, I was raised in the church. I've always been a believer. My parents were believers. That is the most popular answer I get when I ask, why are you a Christian? Number two, I've had an experience that for me confirmed that this was true. Great. Number three, since I've known Jesus, my life's been better, changed in some way. Those are the three most popular answers I get. Now, I'm going to tell you something. My dad is not a believer, but he remarried in the 1960s to a woman who's a Mormon, and they had 6 children together. They've been together for 50 years now. And those 6 kids were raised as Mormons, Latter-day Saints. And if I was to ask my brothers and sisters, why are you a Mormon? They would give me the same 3 answers in the same order. Yet you guys don't think that that is true. Why do our answers about why Christianity is true sound just like every other group? I don't care who you are, what you believe. You're likely to answer the question that way. It doesn't have to be this way. If you don't know evidentially why this vest will stop bullets, you will not stand in it. And if you don't know why Christianity is true, you won't stand in it in a crisis.